Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're in the kitchen again, and today we are going to be making a licorice snap. This is an icebox cookie that we form into a log and then freeze overnight. So make sure you do have the time to make this. It's really easy, but you do need to allow for your log of cookies, your cookie log, to freeze before you slice it. So today we're just going to make the dough, then we'll come back after it's frozen. So let's get started. We are going to start with half a cup of butter or margarine. It doesn't really matter. There are so many spices in this particular dough that you're not really going to notice if it's butter or margarine. So butter or margarine, take your pick. To that, we are going to add half a cup of brown sugar, tightly packed when you measure it. That's the correct way to measure brown sugar, is tightly pack it into your measuring cup. And we're going to do a quarter cup of regular white sugar. Lower our beaters. I am using the Bosch Compact Kitchen Machine, the 400-watt version. You can obviously use any mixer you like. I just do get a lot of questions about what mixer I'm using. I'll put a link to this particular mixer in the description. I do enjoy it. So let's start whirring these up. Okay, we are going to crack one egg into here. There we go. One egg. Turn that on and cream that together. Do a little scrape down on the side. I don't care what mixer you're using. All mixers have ingredients that ride up on the side. So scrape down your side and have your mixer mix just a little more. Now we're going to add our dry ingredients. You're going to do 2 teaspoons of anise seed. This is really important for a licorice snap because it gives it that distinctive flavor. You are going to do half a teaspoon of baking soda, not baking powder, baking soda, a quarter teaspoon of salt, a quarter teaspoon of ground cloves, and a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon. Now we're going to need a little bit of flour. We're just going to do 1 cup of just regular white flour, all-purpose flour, whatever you've got. So we're going to mix all that together. Remember to back off if your flour starts flying up. It means you're going too fast to start. Little faster is good. Just keep going until your ingredients are fully incorporated. Now I'm going to add our final ingredient, which is about a quarter cup of chopped pecans. You can use walnuts if you prefer. If you don't really like pecans, you can use a walnut instead. So just give that a gentle mix. Okay, let's lift that up. Now you'll notice this cookie dough is actually not very dry. So if you start mucking around with it with your hands, it's going to stick like crazy. That's on purpose. Okay, so I'm just going to take this guy out. Take the bowl off the mixer. Mixer out of our way. We don't need it anymore. Your dough should look about like this. Okay, so kind of scrape it all off the sides. Kind of get it all where you want it. Okay, I'm just scraping it into one area. So it is going to be not as stiff as a lot of your cookie doughs will be. That's on purpose. Okay, it's a little bit looser. All right, so the next thing we need some plastic wrap. This is really important. We need something to roll our log into. And I've tried to use a bunch of other things, but plastic wrap is really what does it. Okay, so just lay a piece of plastic wrap nice and flat. Just slice my plastic wrap here. There we go. Now we're going to take our cookie dough and scrape it out of the bowl and onto our plastic wrap. Okay, remember if you handle it too much, it's just going to stick to your hands. So just scrape it right out. Don't use your hands, just use your rubber spatula. Because your silicone spatula probably is what you have. But use one of those because it won't stick as badly. Okay? Because just bear in mind, this is a very sticky dough. That's why it's going in the freezer. Okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to use our plastic wrap. And you can use your fingers a little, but don't put your hands directly in it because, again, it'll really stick. So kind of just move it so it is a little more log-ish. Okay? A little bit more log-ish. There we go. Okay. Don't put your fingers right in the dough, though. Remember, it's very, very sticky. Okay, so have a cloth nearby to wipe your hands. Now we're going to roll this up. And what you're going to decide, how thin do you want your roll? Because if you decide to make your roll really thin and long, you'll have a lot of cookies, but they'll be thinner. So that's entirely up to you. So I'm going to roll up one end of my cookie dough, and then I'm just going to push dough this way. Okay? You're just going to push dough in one direction. Doesn't matter which direction. Until you have a log that's, you know, as long as you want it. So if you want cookies that are 1/2 inch wide, then you want your roll to be 1/2 inch wide. Okay? Now that's about good to me. So I end up with about, 11, 12 inch. Doesn't matter that much. However big you want it. And then you just kind of give it a roll like this. Okay? Kind of just do. And then we are going to take this roll when we've finished smoothing it out and it looks like we want it to look, and we've pushed our sides in so we don't have pointy edges. When it looks basically like we want it to look, what we're going to do is stick this in our freezer. If you have a deep freeze, so a chest freezer, you want to put it in there, it'll freeze better. But it's fine in just your regular fridge freezer as long as it is below 0 for 4 to 8 hours minimum. You can, of course, leave it in there for days if you like. So I'm going to pop this in the freezer, my chest freezer, the deep freeze, and it's going to stay in there overnight. That's how long I like to leave it. You can get away with 4 hours if you're using a deep freeze chest freezer. So we'll come back as soon as this is frozen. So our dough is frozen. It has been sitting overnight, so it should be pretty hard. Okay? So what you want to do is just give it a quick roll in case you have any kind of squared off edges. So the warmth of your hand will help smooth those edges out, because sometimes when you're putting it in the freezer, it may kind of settle. So just kind of give those spots a little bit of a roll. Now preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit and unroll your cookie dough. You can get rid of the plastic wrap, you won't need it. I don't love the waste when it comes to plastic wrap, but really I haven't found a product that wraps these guys as well as plastic wrap. So now you're going to take a sharp knife and decide how thick you want your cookies. Usually you want between an inch and an inch or 1/2 inch. So don't go thinner than a 1/2 inch, but don't go thicker than an inch. Okay, and just start slicing. Use a sharp knife, because if you use a dull knife, it's not going to go through and it's going to smush cookie because this defrosts fast. Okay, it's already softening and it's only been out literally less than 5 minutes. So go quickly and have a cookie sheet that's either lined with parchment paper, or I use a copper liner, or sprayed with cooking spray is fine. There we go. So you want your lined cookie sheet, bring that over, and these end pieces that have wonky butts, place them butt side down. And then just line up your cookies. Remember, you are going to cook these at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're going to put them in the oven for, 9 or 10 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use a spatula to roll them because they like to start sticking. Okay, so we're just going to use a spatula and then kind of pry them apart here. So because the dough is thawing, you've got to work fast. You don't have a ton of time. So if your dough starts to stick, just get a spatula to roll them up, because it will start to stick. Remember how sticky this dough was when you were working with it? It's still that sticky, it's just frozen. Again. And we're just going to finish real fast. So I'm getting about 18 to 20 cookies when I do this recipe. How many you get will depend on how big you made your cookies and how thick you made your cookies. So now we are going to pop these in the oven for 9 to 10 minutes. There's dog barking. But we're going to pop these in the oven for 9 to 10 minutes. Then we will come back and see how they look when we're finished. Ignore tequila. All right, so our cookies have come out of the oven. Now they do spread and they do kind of merge into each other, which is totally fine. A lot of cookies do. What you're going to do is take your spatula, and I've already done most of them. I missed a spot. You're just going to take a sharp spatula and press down on these little indents. After you've let the cookies set for about a minute, minute and a half on the hot cookie sheet. Remember, these are licorice snaps. They should be kind of crisp, and I forgot a spot here too. So then what you're going to do is you're just going to take your spatula, get your cookies off the sheet, and just put them on a cooling rack. Okay, you're going to let them cool completely on the cooling rack because these are licorice snaps. They should have a snap to them, sort of, when you're finished. Hi, Tequila. Tequila's into video. Hi, baby. So you're just going to take them off. Now, if you wanted to have a little more of a snap, instead of cooking them for 10 to 12 minutes, you could cook them up to 16 minutes, depending on how crisp you like your cookies. So I don't like super crisp, so under 14 minutes is my goal, but you can obviously do more than that. These cookies are pretty forgiving when it comes to the length of time you bake them at. They're not forgiving when it comes to temperature. Temperature definitely needs to be 375. If it's a little bit higher, they will burn. Okay, they'll burn pretty fast. So get your temperature set correctly and you can bake them for however much time you want to bake them for. Okay, so I have 4 more here that are not going to fit. I should have opened up the cookie rack. So we're just going to kind of get creative. Don't stack cookies on top. I am, but don't. Don't do it. Okay, there we go. Good enough. Okay, so those are our licorice snaps. So once you've let them cool completely, like right now they still have some softness to them, but the edges have a snap. So let them cool completely. Don't put them away until they're cool, because they are supposed to have a little bit of a snap. So not a lot. If you want more snap, bake them longer. Remember, at least 9 to 10 minutes, up to 14, maybe 16 if you like them really snappy. I don't like them really snappy. Okay, now these will have a kind of licorice flavor just because of the anise seed. They don't have actual licorice in them. That's okay though. We don't need actual licorice in them. I'm just going to switch locations here. Playing musical cookies so I can fit more on the tray. That's what you do, because I didn't separate my cookie rack. But that's okay. We don't worry about that. There we go. Ooh, cookies falling. Anyway, so that's what licorice snaps look like. If you don't want them bleeding into each other, you can separate them out more so that they all bake individually. I tend not to because I actually like when I get kind of square cookies. I think they look good on a platter. But if you want them to stay pretty rounded, space them out and put no more than about 8 on your cookie sheet at a time. If you're doing that, make sure you return the log to the freezer so that it doesn't thaw while you're waiting for the other batches to cook. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. I hope you enjoy licorice snaps, and I hope you make these at home. We'll see you tomorrow.